Welcome back to another episode of Projecting Grandeur. I am your host, Ron Dichter. Thanks for tuning in. Today's topic is less about learning about a specific thing and more about wisdom. My wisdom. And this is really geared towards somebody who may have had a business they sold or some sort of event happened in your life, and you're now in a position where maybe you don't have to jump right back into something, or maybe you're financially in a position unrelated to business where you just have a moment to think about what's possible. And I don't want to call this this episode a cautionary tale as much as it is a wake-up call to those who have opportunity. And I was having dinner last week with some friends, and this is a couple that is very financially set. They've had a couple businesses and some really good opportunities, and we were just kind of having that conversation about what's next. And they knew that I was head down into a new startup and kind of going that path, and they were kind of figuring out what they want to do. They have kids that had left the house. They had enough money that maybe they weren't living like this huge lap of luxury, but they were certainly comfortable and not in a have-to situation. And we were just having this philosophical conversation about what's next, and it took us down a rabbit hole of ideas and concepts. And something that was really interesting that came out of it was, what would happen if you didn't have to do something and you could do anything you wanted? And not so much like hypothetical, but like think of how you're wired as a person. So for me, as an example, I'm very much a type A person, and even though maybe I don't have to work, I really enjoy it, and I enjoy building businesses, and I get great satisfaction out of it. But they asked me the question, like, what happens if you didn't do that? Like, what would happen in your life if you didn't do another business? And I got thinking about it, and I said, well, what would you do? And the other thing that came out of it was, if you allowed yourself time to kind of decompress from whatever you're wired to do, what would your brain unlock? And I was doing an interview a few weeks ago with a guy named Adam Bloomston, who I respect tremendously, and he had said something to me after the call, or after the interview, that really I got thinking about as it relates to this conversation with the dinner with my friends. And he had said, when you get done with a business and you have a decent liquidity event, it takes your brain 8 to 12 months of doing nothing related to that to really figure out what it is that you want to do and what it is that you want to accomplish. And what was really interesting is, I've never actually given my brain time to unravel, time to stop thinking about business and stop thinking about what I'm wired to do, and what would happen if I let my brain just kind of unravel from that. And the reason I'm telling you this topic today isn't so much telling you about kind of what I'm doing, but more about the concept of what happens if you don't have to, and what would happen in your life if you just allowed your brain to stop thinking about the one thing that you do really well and allow your brain to start thinking about other things. And I'm a believer that every person has incredible talents, but most of those talents are never allowed to come out, and frankly, some of those talents aren't even discovered. We may have a skill that we don't even know exists because we've never tried something and never given ourselves the ability to try something different, or try something maybe out of the area of expertise that we're focused on. And obviously, in a lifetime, you can't chase everything, but if you have the opportunity to just let your brain wander and start thinking about what's possible in the world of anything, like what could happen? And again, this is really just more of a epiphany, if you will, from the dinner I had with my friends, because as they were, going through this process, we started talking, and it turns out one of them actually is a really good author and has some amazing ideas for books, but never given themselves the ability to sit down and write, because there's too go on to the next thing in their business. And they said, I think I'm going to just unlock my brain for 6 to 12 months and just let my creative brain start putting words on paper. And I just was, amazed, one, at the thought of being able to do something like that is really inspiring. The other part about it is that, this is like this freedom that somebody gets. So if you're just starting out in business and your goal is to grow something amazing, and maybe your goal is to sell it someday, like, think about this in the concept of what you would do next. And again, this is a little bit off topic of what we're talking about, but if you think about how this loops back to the concept of projecting grandeur, it's the same thing, right? Allow your brain to project grandeur. Allow your brain to process what's possible. And if you've ever got the opportunity to just figure things out, even if you didn't have a liquidity event, maybe you were laid off from your job, which I'm sorry for, or maybe, you had a business that failed, or maybe, there's this moment in time where you're allowed to just be. What would happen? And so the whole point of today's topic is, it's okay to not know what you want to do next. It's okay what you may not want to do now. But take an opportunity to let your brain, settle in. Take an opportunity for your brain to unlock what potential may exist that you're unaware of, and really just think things through and put a different lens on the way you view the world. And maybe these new ideas, maybe these new concepts, maybe this new chapter in your life can be unlocked by just stop and let your brain wander. Let your brain think in directions that you give it freedom to allow it to do. So again, today, a little bit of a rambling session, but I believe that, we all have tons of talent inside of us, and sometimes we just don't give our brain the ability to find it and unlock it so that we can go, do something amazing that maybe we didn't think was possible. Hope you find this helpful. Please remember to share. I put this out every day because I care, because I want to help as many people as I can. And if you find value in this, please share it with somebody who else you think might find value. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Ron Dichter, and this is Projecting Grandeur.